Hi guys. Oh, just saw a roadrunner. See if you could see it. No, he ran. There's so many roadrunners in Arizona. I love them. Such pretty creatures. I am walking to the gym, and I'm gonna see how if my phone doesn't burn out from the sun right now, because that tends to happen, overheats. So let's see if I can actually record this without it overheating. Had a very, very rough night, but also very good insights. So this is really good. And sticking to the theme of anger. Anger is a form of love, actually. And I think we're always taught that anger should be suppressed, and that anger is not something we should show or feel. Very most specifically for women, but I think in general as people, I think we're sort of rewarded for seeing how calm and balanced we can remain and not show anger. But as I said before, I am a recovering people pleaser, as a lot of people are, not just women, but a lot of people. And but I think a lot of women can relate to this, to being a people pleaser, to being extremely self-sacrificing and all of this. And anyway, but this goes for a lot of people. Being a people pleaser is extremely dangerous to yourself, to everyone around you. And let me just explain the reason that I want to talk through my emotions and post while I'm in a state of anger, and talk about how important this is. Shadow work, I talk about a lot. Shadow work is really, really important. Shadow work doesn't mean you sit and you logically understand certain things at a intellectual level. That is not shadow work. That is just touching the icing, that is just the icing on the cake, so to speak. You gotta eat that shit. You gotta bite into that and understand what it means, shadow work. So when we say shadow work, you hear this a lot. What shadow work is recognizing and understanding the parts of ourselves that we try to suppress because we are ashamed, or we don't want the world to see certain parts exist within us. We want to pretend that we are always agreeable, always nice, always kind, have no boundaries, because we want to be liked. That is a shadow aspect. If you are a people pleaser and you want to be liked, and therefore you suppress having your voice, you suppress showing how you feel. And so also what I learned about people pleasing, and this is the thing that really wanted me to change, this is the switch that it made for me. People pleasing is actually a form of control. And I never knew this. It's a low-key form of manipulation. Now, you may not know this, and probably you don't. If you're people pleasing, like I was very unconscious to the fact that being a people pleaser was actually me trying to control everything around me and my environment around me. I wanted control. I wanted control of the way people viewed me. I wanted control of how my environment looked. I wanted control of people's opinions of me. And so I did that by being constantly agreeable, the good one, the well-liked person, all of this. I knew deep down inside, I didn't recognize myself. It becomes second nature almost once you're in this. And a lot of times you're a people pleaser for a lot of reasons. Deeply insecure. If you lack self-worth or confidence, you become a people pleaser because what's important to you is to be liked by everybody. And so you'd rather just be liked. And that's more important to you than actually having integrity or values and things like this. But when you become aware of what it actually means to be this kind of person, I think then it's hard to go backwards, you know? Once you see that, you're like, oh shit, it actually means I'm controlling. Oh God, it actually means I'm low-key trying to manipulate situations. And now I don't want anybody to feel bad. I just say this because sometimes when you know the truth, they say the truth hurts, but it also sets you free. I mean, this is cliche, but that is truth, you know? That's what it's supposed to do. And I think if you can look at yourself with humility and compassion and understand why you are that way, that's it. A lot of times, people pleasing happens to people that have deep childhood wounds, right? Not all cases, but a lot of times there are people that have these deep childhood wounds, and maybe like myself, you come from a very dysfunctional family, and so you were the child in the family. In order to survive, you were the good girl, you know, and you just wanted peace, and it actually comes from a lot of fear. And so because probably the adults in your environment were so wounded and so disruptive and so chaotic that you just were like, okay, I'm not going to have a voice. I'm afraid constantly of even speaking up, of even having an opinion. So I will just be the person that's agreeable and kind and the good, you know, person. Or other people, maybe you don't come from childhood abuse, but maybe you have deep shame within you for whatever reason, or you're just deeply insecure person. And so when you can please everybody, you feel good about yourself. But this is deep shadow work, because you have to ask yourself, why am I doing that? You know, really, if you're pleasing everybody at the detriment of yourself, that is something that is not self-love. That is not being a good person. That is actually really wearing a mask. And so when we do shadow work, we have to literally go back and understand, why am I doing these things? But more importantly, when we feel anger and when we feel emotions that are, say, not pretty, and you want to judge something or somebody, or you want to curse somebody or something out, or you want to just, some evil, ugly shit comes into your mind, right? This doesn't mean you're a bad person, okay? It really doesn't. It just means you've abandoned yourself, and you've learned to abandon yourself for so long that now your body is literally reacting, and it's coming up with all this negativity. But it's really important not to spiral into shame, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm having these thoughts. I can't believe I'm thinking this way about this person. Please be compassionate with yourself. I do rage writing, right? And so, for example, if something comes up where I was like, God, I can't believe I acted that way. I can't believe I did that. But it was in the past. Or maybe there was a person that, you know, tried to manipulate you, tried to control you, or disrespected you in some way. And now it's coming up. In your mind, you might be like, this and go off on a tangent, right? I'm telling you, rage writing, write it all out, even if it's disgusting, even if you're cursing that effing person out. You got to get it out of your body. This doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't. What you can do is, after you write it out, watch how you feel. I'm telling you, you can just go off, write every ugly thing, how you feel, down on paper, okay? And know that once it's out of your system, it's out of your system. It's out of your body. You can crumble up that paper, throw it out. You can burn that paper and throw it out. And sometimes you might need to do this over and over to clear that within you, you know, and that's okay. I think people that come from childhood trauma, when all these things start coming up, it's because we realized for so many years we allowed people that take advantage, and we were subtly manipulated by people, or we gave our power away, or we the nurturing side of us put other people before us, and now it's hurting, and now it's like your body's telling you, yeah, this was not coming from a place of love. Like, when you abandon yourself and your needs for somebody else, that's not okay. It's hard, because a lot of times when we are wounded, we can also connect with other people that are also deeply wounded. And sometimes you can feed off of each other in some way. But this is how you know you're healing. When you start to feel discomfort in those connections, when you start to feel a sense of like, wait, this person is not genuine, this is not authentic, and I know it. And this is when you know this is not the evil CPTSD or intrusive thoughts. This is inner wisdom and truth. This is your body giving you red flag signals, telling you something is not right here. And the other person may not know or be aware of their shadow just yet. And that's okay. But if you become aware and something tells you, I think this is an unhealthy connection, I think this person doesn't realize, what they're saying or what they're coming from. But if you feel in your body discomfort, that's when you know you're healing. And you gotta listen to that, because traumatized people, we're so used to ignoring that inner voice, shutting down the voice, and telling ourselves we're being too much, it's not right, we should have empathy. When I was a little girl, I spent most of my life, as a child actually, comforting other people, mostly adults, very wounded adults. And I became very good at this. And as a little girl, I had parents that were emotionally unstable. They were struggled with addiction. There was a lot of violence and anger in my household. And oftentimes I had to be the one to take care of everybody in the house, to make sure everybody was okay. And I learned at a very young age that my needs did not matter, that my boundaries also did not matter. Nobody respected my boundaries when I grew up. And so as an adult, even asking for small boundaries and certain space with people or certain things that don't feel right, they get overridden, and it's so subtle. And I think when you can speak honestly and communicate to another person, and that other person is healthy, and can be also hard to know who's healthy and who's not, especially if you come from dysfunction, because you mostly grew up with unhealthy people, right? And unhealthy family dynamics. So what tends to feel familiar and safe is actually not, because what feels healthy for you most likely is rooted in some sort of toxicity, right? But that's the thing that's going to feel safe, because that's what you know. So I think meeting safe people, they are generally going to have very strong boundaries. They are generally going to speak very matter-of-factly, and they are usually not trying to people please. They respect how you feel and understand you, and you'll start to recognize and differentiate what is healthy for you and what is not. Now, I always, even from a very young age, I was always drawn to people that were kind of polarizing. And what I mean by that is people that were not always well liked, people that wore their shadows, what I like to say. And when someone has done deep shadow work, is that they can speak about themselves and say they're down, their not so glamorous side of themselves, very honestly, without emotion or without shame. They can speak about, some of the past things that they've done that they're not so proud of. They can speak on it with integrity. There are also people that get angry. There are also people that know their worth. And when they know their worth, they say no to things. They set boundaries. They're not afraid of somebody else not liking them. They don't chase. You'll know in the character of a person who's healthy, and that might feel foreign to you. But, for example, I knew when I realized that I had not done shadow work. I know what it looks like in an individual, and it's usually the very happy-go-lucky, love and light people that project this. I was that person, so I know I didn't even fucking touch my shadow work. I just was like, oh, everything is lovely, and everyone's intentions are great, and all of this stuff. And that's a person that has not even touched upon their shadow or their darkness. Your darkness is very, very important. Your shadow is extremely important. People that dive deep into their shadow and that face it and they're not afraid of it, they are the brightest lights in the world. They can shine the brightest. The darker and the deeper that you go, and unashamedly go, the brighter you can shine in the world. I think this is something that's really, really important. And know that when you're around safe people, and when you're in environments where you can share this without judgment and speak on it and to help others, you'll start to feel less ashamed, and you'll start to say, okay, I understand. That's why it's really important. Deconstruct your life. Like that Tim Fletcher video I posted a while back, the 4 pillars of deconstruction. It starts with the self. Deconstruct yourself, deconstruct your family, deconstruct the environment or community you grew up in, deconstruct your faith. Understand where everything came from, what you were taught, why you are the way you are. Once you start doing these things, you become much less ashamed of yourself. The reason I try to share my struggles, as hard as it's been, I've fallen down a lot, but I try to keep showing up here authentically, is because I got really tired of people giving me advice that actually have never gone through anything profound, have never actually faced their shadow. They just maybe heard something, I don't know, on a podcast, or they're just quoting something, but it's not. Wisdom comes through experience and through actually facing the darkness head on. It doesn't come from reading a book, listening to something that might inspire you. And I say this from experience, not to put anybody down, because I used to be that person. I used to think the more that I read, the more that I intellectualized and had an intellectual understanding of what was wrong with me, that I could teach other people. I mean, it's an innocent reflection, but it's obviously innocent in the sense that innocence, you're like a child, that doesn't make you a teacher. It doesn't make you somebody that can actually walk with somebody in their shadow or sit with them. So if you face some pretty awful things and actually walk through your own darkness, I want to learn from you. I want to understand how did you do that? It's very difficult to face your shadow, but it's also extremely fucking liberating. And here's the ticker. This is what stops a lot of people from. Is ticker a word? Like, where the fuck did that come? Here's the ticker. You know what I mean. That was so weird. But here's the thing why people don't want to delve into the depths of their shadow. Because once you do, there's really no turning back. You cannot be the people pleaser anymore. And you will lose people in your life. This is an uncomfortable truth that I'm going to just say out loud. There is something that happens once you face your shadow. The people that were used to the wounded version of you, the disempowered version of you, the weaker version of you, the version of you that had no boundaries, that had no self-worth, that spent their life lifting others up, because not out of wanting friends or ego, because you had no self-worth, but you had a heart for people, you have strong empathy and all of this. Once you spend your whole life, doing that, and you're codependent and you're dependent on people, and you're just weak and at low points in your life, people get used to this baseline vibration of what you were, this wounded person. So when you start to heal and you no longer need validation, you no longer need the same kind of help, you're no longer this wounded bird, you're actually empowering yourself slowly and slowly. People start to take that as a direct attack, or people start to feel offended by this. And sometimes that's difficult because you can lose community, you can lose friends. But actually, here's the thing. If somebody's growth doesn't inspire you to also grow, then that means you have to look deeper at what attached you to that person. And attach is a word I would look into also. Like, what kept you attached to a person, And so sometimes we don't recognize unconsciously we attach to people because they make us feel a certain way. And this is something I try to, because of the work that I want to do and the work that I've done in sound and the work that I want to do, continue to do with children, I always deeply want to empower people, because I have been the most disempowered person that I fucking know. I have been the most victimized, disempowered person that I know. And I know how this can affect you and everything around you. I've lost everything in my life. I was so codependent. I was left with absolutely fucking nothing. And it leaves you in this victimhood. But then it allows sometimes other people to feel empowered through giving to you. This is very toxic, and this is deep shadow work. And I had to admit that to myself. I had no self-worth, that I was accepting handouts constantly because I felt like I could not empower myself. And I would never want any child, any human being to ever, ever, ever have to do that. I mean, when I went to Bosnia and Croatia and the Balkans, and I saw these children that were taught to beg on the street, they call them gypsies and things like this broke my heart, because that is also what I came from. My mother was deeply disempowered, and she wasn't a bad person. She just had zero self-worth. And then she got herself tangled with people that take advantage and so on. And, I got to break that. And so we all have to break this. And so it's deeply important to not be ashamed. And that's why look into, why am I the way that I am? Deconstruct everything. Become the observer in your life. Be compassionate with yourself. It's okay. We've all done things we're not proud of. We've all maybe been manipulative. We've all maybe lashed out. We've all maybe hurt other people in our wounding. It's okay. It's okay. Like, the first thing you need to do is hug yourself and love yourself, and know that the person that did that was deeply wounded. And in that moment, they didn't know better. But now that you know better, you can do better. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you how deeply empowering it is to be angry and to fuel that anger into something creative like this. I could be out there cursing out people left and right. In fact, I enjoy that a little bit too much. But I don't want to do that. I want to be on here telling people that you can alchemize that anger. Get angry, feel it, set boundaries, and watch your circle in your life get a little bit smaller, okay? And that's okay. This is also building resilience and strength, because the most compassionate thing you can do is continue to work on yourself. You're going to thank yourself in 5 months, 5 years, 10 years, when you're a person that you don't even recognize right now. So you have to speak to yourself from that higher space. You have to speak to yourself. Like, imagine that empowered person. What does she look like? or he? What does he sound like? How does he walk? What does he say to people? How would he respond to people? Start imagining it now. That's your higher self. You're creating that individual now. And so it really matters to do that. And no, it's very scary to set boundaries. It's going to be very scary when people start switching up on you. It's okay. This is going to build character, thicker skin, and always know that you're a teacher. By growing and by being this person, you can then teach others through embodiment, not on a platform with empty words, but through embodiment, through really genuinely being like, look, I came from this victimized state, and you can too. You can find your way back to wholeness. You know, you can put all these pieces together that you lost through trauma and wounding, and a whole fucking person can form and inspire other people. And so I just want to say that, because I cannot, and we hear shadow work a lot, but I think so many people have an intellectual understanding of it, but really facing your shadow is much, much deeper, and it takes a very, very long time. But each layer that you get through, the more empowered you feel, and the more you can inspire others to do the same, you know? And just know that the more authentic you are, the more authentic people you're going to actually attract in your life, and your relationships are going to get better, your community is going to get better, your family connections are going to get better, all of it. All right, guys, I'm sweating, by the way, and off to the gym to sweat some more. So see you later.